Hey family, it's Patsy White for a late night Friday night post, the last day of July, which is just pretty hard to believe. I just had a few things I wanted to share on my heart. This will not be a 5 minute post. Of course, I've said that before and it was, but I believe this is a 3 minute post. I've been meditating in a few different scriptures, but one that keeps coming back to me. This is the New Living Translation of Romans 12, verses 1 and 2. It says, "And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all that he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him. Don't copy the behaviors and customs of the world, but let God transform you into the person by changing the way you think, into a new person, by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." So, the things that I wanted to highlight tonight, one is that let them be a living and holy sacrifice. This is our bodies. The kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him. So, to worship God means that there's nothing, there's nothing more important than God. When we present our bodies as a living sacrifice, our bodies are pretty much all we have in this earthly plane that we move around with from the time that we're formed in our mother's womb to the time that we die and breathe our last breath. Our body is the thing that moves, that carries our spirit around. And so when we provide our bodies as a living sacrifice, that's basically saying that there is no more self, that there's no more me, that what is important is that God has use and full faculty of every sensory, every part of me that he might need in the world to convey to the world who he is. So when it says, you know, this is truly the way to worship God, worship means that we put something first, like there's nothing else that comes before it. When we actually sacrifice our lives and our bodies, that means that there is nothing internally, nothing in our opinion, our feelings, our thoughts, our pains, that there's nothing that we put before God, even our bodies, even our sensations and feelings and thoughts, opinions, possessions, that when we lay our bodies on the altar of sacrifice, we die. And so that's what we're being asked to do, is die to self. So this is just um, a beautiful commandment. It says, don't copy the behaviors and customs of the world. You know, in other words, the world has put everything else before God, anything else before God. That, but let God transform you into the new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good, pleasing, and perfect. And so when we do that, even if we sacrifice ourselves on the altar, even for just a minute, in that minute is intimacy. We increase it to 5 minutes. In those 5 minutes is intimacy. And the more intimate time we get to spend, it says, then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good, pleasing, and perfect. So I encourage us to go ahead and lay aside everything, lay ourselves on the altar, and when we crawl off, crawl back on, and keep presenting ourselves over and over, no matter how imperfect it comes across. Our intention is to just keep dying, keep dying, keep dying, keep attempting and pulling ourselves and pushing ourselves and moving ourselves back on the altar of sacrifice, because that's where the true intimacy, the true worship, and the true treasures of our relationship with God exist. Have a beautiful weekend, and thanks for listening.